Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to tackle something really crucial for understanding the AI landscape, especially, from a governance perspective. Clause 5 of the ISO IEC 3850-7.2022 standard.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this as like a focus session where we'll break down the fundamentals of artificial intelligence as this important standard lays them out.
Right.
Our mission is basically to give you a clear and efficient understanding of what AI systems are all about.
That's right. Consider us your guides through this section of the ISO standard. We'll be taking it step by step, examining the core concepts within Clause 5.
Okay.
Our main goal for this part is to clearly explain, how AI systems function at a fundamental level, and just as importantly, to pinpoint the key ways they differ from the information technology you're probably already familiar with. We want to build a solid foundation for you.
All right, let's dive straight into Section 5.1, which gives us the general overview of AI and AI systems. One of the very first things the standard emphasizes is the sheer variety you see in AI systems.
Yeah, they're not all the same.
Exactly. Because they can be so different, it naturally follows that the level of governance oversight needed will also vary. For anyone in a governing role, or frankly anyone whose organization is using AI, it's essential to really understand what use of AI entails in their specific context and when their direct involvement or specific governance strategies become necessary.
And what's fascinating here is the standard's focus on tailoring that governance approach. It's not suggesting like a rigid one-size-fits-all set of rules.
No, definitely not.
The level of attention and control from a governance perspective should be proportional to the specific AI system being used and the potential impact it could have on the organization. That understanding at the top level is absolutely critical for ensuring responsible and, well, effective adoption of AI.
Exactly. And to put this into a framework you're likely already familiar with, the standard makes it clear that AI doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's built on the back of existing IT infrastructure that most organizations already have in place.
Yeah.
Think about your current networks, the ever-expanding universe of Internet of Things, devices, those sensors and actuators you hear about, and then layer on big data and cloud computing. These are often the fundamental building blocks upon which AI systems are developed and run.
If we connect this to the bigger picture for a moment, it really highlights that AI isn't some completely foreign entity. It's more of an evolution, taking advantage of and extending the digital capabilities that have already been established.
Yeah.
This also suggests that some of the governance frameworks you might already have for your existing IT could be relevant, although, as we'll discuss, they likely won't be sufficient on their own.
Right, that's a key point. Now, the standard then really homes in on what has been the major catalyst for the recent leaps in AI capabilities, and that's machine learning, or ML.
Ah, yes, ML.
It's a term that's thrown around a lot, and the standard provides a really clear definition. It's an AI technique that empowers computers to essentially learn without needing explicit step-by-step programming for every single task they need to perform.
And this is a pivotal distinction when you compare it to traditional software development. Instead of a programmer writing lines of code that directly dictate every single action the software takes,
Right, the old way.
with machine learning, the system learns to identify patterns and relationships directly from data. This allows for a degree of independence and adaptability that simply wasn't achievable with systems that relied purely on predefined rules coded by humans.
And speaking of data, the standard really emphasizes its central role in machine learning. It's the fuel, right? The fuel that drives these systems.
Absolutely.
The standard even gives a really helpful list of the different types of data that come into play, and it's probably broader than you might initially imagine. Text, numbers, pictures, symbols, formulae, graphs, images, and even things like speech, sound, and videos. It's often the sheer volume and the variety of this data that enables ML algorithms to uncover really complex patterns.
And the crucial insight here for you, the listener, is that the quality and the characteristics of the data you feed into an ML system will directly influence the performance and the reliability of the resulting AI model.
Oh, definitely.
If the data is biased or incomplete in some way, the model that learns from that data is very likely to reflect those same shortcomings. This data-centric nature of ML has significant implications for how organizations need to approach data governance and management when they're using AI.
Building on that, the standard then walks us through the fundamental process within machine learning. It involves taking an existing collection of data, using it to train and create what's called a model,
The model, yeah.
and then applying that trained model to new data that the model hasn't seen before. This is how the AI system is then able to tackle problems, make predictions about future events, or categorize new pieces of information. You can think of it as learning from past experiences and then applying that learning to new situations.
Exactly. The model essentially captures the learned relationships and patterns that the AI has identified within the initial training data.
Right.
When it's presented with new, previously unseen data, the model uses those internalized patterns to generate an output, whether that output is a prediction about what a customer might do next, a categorization of an image it hasn't encountered before, or even a decision within, say, a complex game.
Now, the standard makes a really key observation at this point, because AI systems based on machine learning operate with defined objectives, utilize specific algorithms to learn from data, undergo a training phase, and quite often produce outputs that are probabilistic.
Ah, probabilistic. That's key.
Right, meaning they give you a likelihood or a probability rather than a definitive yes or no. This introduces a whole new spectrum of potential risks, but also, of course, significant opportunities for organizations.
This idea of probabilistic outputs is a really significant differentiator from traditional IT systems, where the outputs are typically deterministic. If you put in a specific input, you get a predictable output based on the rules programmed into the system.
Yeah, it's fixed.
But with AI, there's often an inherent element of uncertainty in many of the predictions, and this is something that needs to be well understood and managed from a governance perspective. What does it really mean in a business context when an AI tells you there's a 90% chance of something happening?
That's a really insightful question, and it leads us perfectly to the standard highlighting AI's inherent capability to automate decision making. By its very nature, an AI system analyzes data and can act upon these probabilistic outcomes, often taking actions without direct, real-time human intervention.
And this automation has a potential to be incredibly transformative for organizations. The standard rightly points out that AI can fundamentally reshape the nature of the products and services you offer, the internal processes you use, and even the way your organization interacts with its various stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's not just about making existing tasks a little bit faster. It has the potential to unlock entirely new ways of operating and creating value.
And this transformative potential, as the standard underscores, isn't limited to just a few niche areas. We're seeing AI being applied across a vast range of industries: healthcare, finance, manufacturing, retail, you name it.
It's everywhere.
It's rapidly becoming a pervasive technology that touches almost every sector.
However, and this is a really critical point to keep in mind for governance, the standard reminds us that alongside these considerable benefits comes the potential for significant downsides or harms.
Right. Risks.
This is precisely why the use of AI needs to be carefully integrated into an organization's overall framework for assessing and managing risks. The potential negative consequences can be just as impactful as the positive ones.
Absolutely. The standard also points out that the very act of using AI can create new legal or voluntary obligations for an organization. This is particularly relevant when we're talking about AI systems that are making decisions autonomously, or when we consider the massive amounts of data that AI systems typically rely on. Regulations around data privacy are just one clear example of this.
And if we tie this back to the responsibilities of a governing body, they need to be acutely aware of this constantly evolving legal and ethical landscape surrounding AI. It's simply not enough to just deploy the technology. There needs to be a thorough understanding of the compliance implications and a commitment to ensuring the organization operates within the bounds of both the law and, well, accepted ethical practices.
And this brings us to a really significant consideration that the standard specifically calls out for governing bodies: the capability of AI to move beyond simply presenting information or options and to actually execute actions without a human in the decision loop.
That autonomy piece.
Yeah, this level of autonomy is a major departure from many traditional IT systems where human input is generally required for any action to be taken.
This ability for AI to act independently based on its analysis is where the governance challenges really start to become more complex. It necessitates a deep understanding of the AI's decision-making processes, as much as that's possible anyway, the potential ramifications of its actions, and the establishment of clear mechanisms for accountability and control.
So, to really solidify what makes AI distinct, especially when we're thinking about governance, the standard kind of boils it down to three key differences from other technologies.
The 3 points.
First, as we've been discussing, there's that inherent capability for decision automation. Second, AI relies on data analysis, the extraction of insights, and learning to solve problems, rather than solely on explicit human-coded logic.
Data-driven.
And third, AI possesses the ability to adapt to changes in its environment in ways that weren't explicitly programmed and might not even be fully predictable.
And these three core elements, decision automation, data-driven problem solving, and the capacity for adaptation, really form the crux of why AI presents both unique governance challenges and exciting opportunities. They have profound implications for how organizations need to approach oversight, manage risks, and ensure accountability in this evolving technological landscape.
Okay, so we've established a solid foundation with that general overview. Now let's move into section 5.2 of the standard, which specifically goes into detail about how AI systems differ from other, more traditional information technologies.
Right.
This section really sharpens the distinctions we've just started to explore.
Exactly. This is the part where the standard provides more concrete examples and further clarifies the unique characteristics of AI when you compare it to traditional IT systems that typically perform more predictable and, rule-based functions.
The first key difference that's highlighted in this section is, once again, decision automation. The standard clarifies that AI systems generate their outputs based on both the historical data they've been trained on and any current data that's relevant to their design.
Okay.
But here's where it becomes particularly interesting for our discussion. In many modern AI systems that are based on machine learning, these predictions are often probabilistic in nature.
Right. Back to the probabilities. This probabilistic nature is so fundamental to understanding the governance implications. Unlike a traditional program that gives you a definitive answer, a clear yes or no, based on a fixed set of rules.
Like a simple spreadsheet formula.
Exactly. An AI might tell you that there's a high probability of something being true, but it's rarely a 100% certainty. This has profound implications for how we need to interpret and act upon the outputs that AI systems provide.
The standard provides a really clear example to illustrate this point. There is a 97% probability that this part does not meet the quality requirements. The standard specifically points out how this kind of output differs significantly from the deterministic outputs you would typically get from traditional IT systems, which would likely give you a clear pass or fail based on predefined absolute specifications.
And that's the key difference to really get your head around. A 97% probability of not meeting quality requirements isn't the same as a definitive fail.
No, it's not.
It introduces a level of nuance and requires human judgment in determining the appropriate course of action. Do you automatically reject the part based on this probability, or do you trigger a further, more detailed inspection? This probabilistic output fundamentally shifts the decision-making process and necessitates a different set of governance considerations around things like acceptable probability thresholds, potential error rates, and, well, the appropriate level of human oversight.
So, as we bring our focus session on Clause 5 to a close, let's quickly recap the key takeaways for you. We've seen how AI builds upon the foundation of existing IT infrastructure, but introduces its own unique set of characteristics, largely driven by machine learning and that all-important role of data.
Right, big data is central.
We've highlighted the probabilistic nature of many AI outputs, which is a significant departure from the deterministic outputs we typically see in traditional IT systems.
And crucially, we've underscored the core differentiators of AI from a governance standpoint. Its inherent capability for decision automation, its reliance on data-driven problem solving as opposed to just explicit pre-programmed code, and its ability to adapt and learn from changing environments. Understanding these fundamental aspects is absolutely essential as organizations navigate the complexities of integrating AI into their operations and establishing effective governance frameworks.
That's absolutely right. And it leads us to a really thought-provoking question for you, the listener, to consider as you continue to explore this area. Given this probabilistic nature of AI decisions, how might organizations need to fundamentally rethink their traditional risk assessment frameworks, which are often built on more deterministic models and assumptions?
Good question.
It's definitely something worth reflecting on.
Indeed. And as you delve deeper into this important topic, we encourage you to consider the potential benefits that AI offers, as well as the inherent limitations it might have, both of which are discussed in more detail in the subsequent sections of the standard. It's all part of building a comprehensive and nuanced understanding.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Clause 5. We'll be back soon with more insights.